Okay, so the next step of the solve strategy is for organize, as in organize the facts. So organize. When you guys think of the word organize, what do you think of the most? I'm gonna pause for a minute. This is what I think of when I think of the word organize. I think of a really, really messy room. So when I think of a word problem or a performance task in the Smarter Balance test, I think of a really cluttered room. There's a lot of junk, a lot of information. Some of it is useful, and a whole bunch of it is not. So part of the organizing part of the solve strategy, your key goal is to figure out what sentences or phrases are going to help you solve the problem and make it neat, like this. So that's the key goal, is to get rid of the junk and the stuff that you don't need to figure out how to solve that problem. Okay, so with the strategy, here's a few prompts. I want you to think about, what do you already know from the word problem that you can use to solve it? And so to find those key things, you're looking at facts. And facts are sentences that are part of a word problem that include numbers, variables, or math terms. So that's your huge hint, is if you see numbers, variables, or math terms, those are probably facts that you might need to solve the problem. Also, they can include diagrams, such as drawings or charts. So we're going back to our example of, now that we set our example of the word problem. And one thing that's already helping us is you already know what the questions and commands are. Of course, there's a fact there, figures 4 and 5, because that has a number in it. So that might be something that we would need to look at. But what we really need to know to solve this problem is let's see. You guessed it. It's the tile pattern. The tile pattern. So in fact, the fact that you need to solve this problem is the diagram. Because in order to figure out what figures 4 and 5 look like, we need to know what we have to figure out what we already know about figures 1, 2, and 3. So this is what I would do. I pulled it out of the problem. And I also noticed that in the upper left, I pulled out the original question that we had, not the one with the big multisyllabic words, but the one that we made up together to simplify the problem. So look at the drawings and draw figures 4 and 5. So to figure out what figure 4 and 5 look like, we have to figure out what figure 1 and 2 and 3 are telling us. I see in the first triangle figure right here, I see one triangle with one row. In figure 2, I see two rows. I see two rows of two rows and 2 rows of the triangle. And in figure 3, I see 3 rows, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 triangles. So there's a pattern going on here. So I'm guessing, obviously, the fourth pattern is going to have four rows, and the fifth pattern is going to have 5 rows, right? And what's really good is you guys have already figured this out, because many of you guys are really good at spatial reasoning. Spatial reasoning is all about figuring out the pattern by looking at a bunch of pictures. So that's really easy for you. If it's not really easy for you, please let Miss Downham or me know as soon as possible so we can work with you on this. And so to help me understand this, I actually wrote it out in words. So I know that in the first triangle, I see one triangle with 1 row. The second triangle, I see 2 rows of 2 triangles. And in the third pattern, I see 3 rows with 6 triangles. And yeah, that means more writing. But if writing is not your key, another great way is, I know some of you guys can just verbally explain it and explain it to your classmates. Speaking of that, in this case, you have a few choices to who to explain what you already know to. Your math teacher prefers you to ask your classmates, because some of your classmates actually kind of know this. But you can also, worst case scenario, if you guys are really, really confused, you talk to your teacher. But the main thing is this. Now that we kind of already know what Now that we kind of have figured out the pattern, we can now create a strategy to solve this word problem. And that's your cue to go to the next video.